channel again. Today I thought we'd go a little Asian again, and I thought we'd do something, one of my favorite dishes from when I used to visit Singapore very often, which was when I was a kid, and that's called the Hainanese chicken rice. So this is a very simple dish that focuses more on the texture of the chicken than the flavor, although it is still flavorful, and it's usually a dish that's eaten not warm, but it's not cold either. It's usually eaten at room temperature with a lot of dipping sauces and some nice hot rice. So for this chicken dish, what we're going to need is a few ingredients like we have here. So there's garlic. We're going to use about 4 to 5 cloves of garlic, about 2 inches of ginger. This here is a special ingredient. It's called pandan. This is a pandan leaf. It's a type of a palm leaf, and it adds a nice flavor. It adds a little umami to the dish. Now this one is not traditional, but I'm going to use it because I find it adds a little sweetness to the dish. And this is daikon radish. You should get all of these things easily in your local grocery store. And of course we have green onions, or spring onions as they call them in Asia, and 1 whole chicken. Besides that, we're going to need some water, salt, and if you want pepper, it's not mandatory. We're going to start by just prepping the chicken a bit. Everyone who makes this dish just likes to use the fat from the chicken, so I'm just going to trim off some fat. You have a lot of fat usually accumulated around the thigh area of the chicken, and some more around the neck. So if we look here, we just cut off some of the skin around the neck, and you see this fat here. That's what we're going to use for rendering. You just need a little bit just to make sure that the rice gets that nice fatty flavor. And then what we're going to do is just going to salt this chicken. So the salting is just let it absorb some flavor before we cook it. So it's about 1.2 kilos of chicken. General rule of thumb is about 1 teaspoon of salt per pound of chicken, or per half kilo of chicken. So this is about a little bit more than 2 pounds, so we're just going to use 2 teaspoons, and I'm going to rub that salt onto the skin and into this cavity here. Make sure you get the salt as evenly as possible around the chicken. You want the chicken to absorb that salt, and that way it'll be moist and tender when it's done. So this is just another measure I take to make it easier for me, because we are going to need to hold the chicken to dip it and put it out from the stock when we're done poaching. So I'm just going to tie a piece of butcher's twine between the 2 legs. Usually in China or in Singapore you'll see them using a meat hook to hold the chicken, but this is just something that I find easy. Now we come to the part where we're starting to make our poaching liquid. So we're going to start by putting some water on the stove at about medium to low heat. The idea is to get it to a steaming point, but not really a boiling point. We're going to start flavoring the water by adding stuff in it, and I'm just going to make a kind of a knot of the pandan just so that it stays together and easy to eat later. Then we're going to slice up some ginger. And for this one, like, you don't need to peel the ginger or anything of that sort, because it's going to be boiling for quite a long time, so it's going to be self-cleaning. And for the most part, the ginger you get here is pretty clean anyway, so you don't have to worry about that. Then just put in some garlic. You can put in the whole garlic pod, skin and everything. I just don't like the garlic skin that's floating around and usually sticks to the chicken, so I'm going to peel the garlic. Smash it up, that way it gives out more flavor. For the green onion, I'm going to use parts that we normally discard. Roots, chop all the roots, and the tops. And you can use the whole green onion for this as well, depends on how you like it. Besides that, we're going to do a few slices of daikon. I'm going to leave that one aside because that was the outermost part. And like I said, the daikon is not traditional, it's something that I'm adding in just because I like the sweetness that it adds to the stock. And we're going to wait for that stock to boil. Besides that, I'm also going to add in some salt I know we've already salted the chicken, but this is just to make sure that the stock also has some seasoning. The next step is to make the spicy dipping sauce. So for that, we're going to use Thai red fried chilies. Now, if you don't have Thai chilies, you can go for any other chili that you like. The other thing we're going to need is some ginger, garlic, some lemon or lime, whatever you have. The traditional version is with calamansi limes, but we don't get those here, so we're just going to use some regular lime and some cilantro. The cilantro is optional, and of course you'll need some salt and pepper. So what we're going to do here is just chop everything up. You can either do it in a mortar or pestle by hand, but I'm just going to use something automated. So we're just going to take off the top of the chili, or the peppers as we call them. If you are allergic to spice, or if you don't like too much spice, you can defeat them. And let's just put some garlic, add that in there. A lot of Chinese or Asian people will tell you that putting it in a blender, grind it, is not going to give you the same flavor as a mortar and pestle. And while that may be true, it's just so much easier. I'm just going to peel the ginger in this case because we don't want that skin cutting flavor, or the texture rather. So I know a lot of people say to use a spoon to peel ginger. I just prefer using the knife because I don't want to do something else. It's just the way that my mom used to do it, and I did it growing up and never bothered trying some other ways. Some cilantro. Like I said, this is an optional extra. I love cilantro. I know some people say it tastes like soap, but trust me, and I've researched this. So if the cilantro is ground up into a paste, it will remove those ketones that give that soapy flavor, and you won't taste soap. You just get the nice flavor of cilantro. And finally, we're just going to squeeze some lime in there, give it some juice to cut the paste. Let's just add a nice generous pinch of salt. Another optional extra is white pepper or black pepper, whatever you have. This here is the sauce, the dipping sauce. It's really spicy, you don't need a lot of it, but it's so flavorful. It's going to add to that chicken, and it's going to make it really taste good. Another optional side that you can serve with the Hainanese chicken rice is a ginger scallion oil. And for that, we're going to need just 3 ingredients. There's ginger, there's scallions or green onions, and oil. I'm going to put about a cup of oil into a saucepan. I'll put that on a medium-high heat. While that starts heating up, I'm going to start peeling some of the ginger and chopping it into nice fine pieces, as fine as possible. And remember, all these peels that you take off from the ginger, it can be put into the stock pot, so nothing really is wasted. There are a few methods and techniques you'll use to make sure that your knife stays sharper longer. For example, don't rub your knife onto the cutting board, for one. Don't use your knife to lift stuff up from the cutting board. Like, you can use a bench scraper for that. If you don't have a bench scraper, well, use the back of your knife like this instead of doing this. All these are some tips and tricks to keep your knife sharp. And a sharp knife is a better knife. So let's just slice that nice and fine. This sauce or this oil that we use is just a flavored oil. It's not for everyone. Like, my wife hates ginger, so she's probably not going to have this. At the same time, it does add a lot of flavor to any dish that you're having it with. And this is a condiment that can be used on anything. It's not just on the Hainanese chicken. You can use it on fried rice. You can use it for whatever you feel like, honestly. I kind of use it. You can even use it in the sandwiches or in your chicken salads or any other salads or salad dressing. Completely up to you. So here we try to go as fine as possible with the ginger. That way it cooks faster. And the ginger, you don't have to worry about it burning because it usually doesn't. It's too fibrous to do that. And then these are only my own problems. And then we just do the scallions the same way. So scallions we can just go rounds or a rough chop, whatever you feel like. And what we're going to do is once that oil comes up to a nice high temperature, anywhere above 300 degrees, I would say ideally 320, but between 300 and 350 is good. We're just going to dump all this stuff into the oil and let it cook with the residual heat. And that will flavor the oil. I'm going to use these ends back in the stock pot. Same with the ginger. And we're just going to wait for that oil to come up to temp. So we're almost ready for the pour now. The oil has reached temp. If you don't have a thermometer to check the temperature, you can just look at it, and if the oil looks like it's shimmering a bit, that means it's good to go. And now we're going to do that nice sizzling sound from the pouring of the oil. Now make sure your bowl is nice and deep for this, because you don't want the oil to start spilling out. Oh, I wish you could smell that. That smells so good. So you can see that the scallions are getting a little bit of browning around the edges, and so is the ginger. It's cooking with the residual heat. Optional extras for this ginger scallion oil are you can add some sesame seeds, you can add some chili flakes, whatever you feel like. You can also do a little bit of gochujang or gochugaru, whatever you feel like. It's completely up to you. I suggest you can add some Szechuan peppers in there. That gives a nice peppery heat. But you know what, we're having it with the spicy dipping sauce as well, so I just wanted to keep this neutral as possible. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a little bit of salt in there, just to give it some more flavor. And there is another secret ingredient that I sometimes add, and that's shrimp oil. Now I make my own shrimp oil, but it's something you can find in your Asian grocery store. And if you can't find it, I'll make another video about shrimp oil and we can put that up sometime. So anyway, that's your ginger scallion oil. So now you can see the water starting to steam, so that means it's ready for the chicken to go in. Now keep in mind, we don't want this at a boil. So boiling temperature for water is about 212 Fahrenheit or 100 degrees centigrade. We want it at about 170 to 205 degrees Fahrenheit, which would be about 70 or 80 degrees centigrade. And the reason for that is we want the collagen to convert without drying out the chicken. So we're going to dip it in there, let the cavity fill with water, let it out. This kind of gets the chicken to a little bit of a better temperature throughout. And we dip it again. And this is just the traditional way of doing it. The cavity also fills up with a lot of your aromatics, your green onion or your ginger or whatever you put in there. Take it out the second time. And this is why I keep this string here, so it becomes easy to do this. And now, you get it going. Now it's important to mention that the chicken has to be completely covered by the water. You see here the legs are still sticking out. So just push them in. Don't use your fingers like I am. Do as I say, not as I do. And just leave that there. That's going to take another 45 minutes to an hour to get ready. We're looking at getting it to an internal temperature of about 170 Fahrenheit, which is about 68 to 70 degrees centigrade. And that's when we know it's cooked. And then you'll see the next step is going to be shocking the chicken, which is pretty shocking. So all the fat that we cut off the chicken, I'm going to put that into this pan here. And it's just on a low heat. What we're looking to do is just render the fat out. And we're going to use that fat put the rice in. It might take about 20 minutes to actually get all the fat out. So we're just going to leave it there and let it do its thing. And you can see that the chicken fat has rendered. It's completely optional, but I like to put a shallot in there just to kind of deglaze the pan. So all that stuff that's stuck at the bottom of the pan will kind of get loosened up. If you don't have shallots, and I know they can be expensive and a little hard to find, you can use onion. Personally, I prefer a red onion to the white or the yellow, but it doesn't make much of a difference. When it comes to shallots are sweeter, I find. They add a nicer flavor. And will also have a little more sulfur content in them, which makes it a little stingier too if you eat them raw. So what we're going to do is we're just going to let it soften up a bit. You can even caramelize it if you like. That also adds a nice flavor. Completely up to you. I just like it really soften, and then I'll add the rice in there. So you can see there's a little bit of what we like to call a fond in Western cuisine. So the burnt pasta is stuck at the bottom. The shallot, as we're cooking it, will tend to loosen that up. And if it doesn't, then don't worry. The water that we add in the cooked rice, or the stock that we add in the cooked rice, will loosen it up. Just loosen it up and get it all clean. Now you'll notice that I left the chicken fat in there, the rendered pieces. That just adds to flavor, so don't worry about it. So you can see here the shallot is nice and soft now. And another good way to tell that the shallot is ready is you just smell it. If your eyes don't water anymore, that means the shallot's done. So let's add the rice in here, and we're going to toast the rice a bit in the pan, just so that it gets some of that flavor. Generally, this recipe calls for jasmine rice, but I use basmati because I always have basmati on hand at home. And we're going to toast it a little bit. We don't have to brown the rice at all. We're just going to let it heat up a bit before we add the water. Now the general ratio for cooking rice is 1:2. So if you're using 1 cup of rice, you need 2 cups of water. We need about 4 cups of the stock, 1 liter of stock. So I'm just going to push it out from here. And you don't have to worry about the chicken right now because the chicken's been cooking for a while. It should be fine, even if the stock goes below that level. When it comes to cooking rice, everyone has a little bit of a different opinion. Some people use the finger method, wherein you just cover the rice with 1 line of your finger with water. That's not very scientific and it doesn't work for large quantities, but as long as you're cooking like 1 or 2 cups of rice, it works. So that's about 4 cups of stock. You still have plenty on there for the chicken cooking. Now I'm going to strain the stock into the rice just to make sure that we don't get any of the other stuff in there. Make sure there's nothing sticking at the bottom. So the rice water has just come to a boil. We're just going to cover it and use a transparent lid as far as possible so you can see what's happening in there. You can see the steam stopped coming out of the pot. That probably means the rice is done. And yes, it is. Okay, we're just going to check the temperature on the chicken. Checking in the breast, that's the thickest part usually. Reading about 170, so that means it's ready to go. Now we have to stop the heat process, and to do that, we're going to plunge it into some ice cold water. And let it sit there for about 10 minutes. After 5 minutes, I'll turn it around, make sure it's completely cool. The idea is to just stop the cooking process and create a nice gelatinous layer with all that collagen that's been converted into gelatin. That will give it a different texture and make it nice and silky and smooth. So it's been about 5 minutes. We're just going to turn the chicken over. Make sure the breast also stops cooking for another 5 minutes before we can slice and serve. The chicken's cooled down enough. We're gonna pull it out in the water. I want to set it on this paper towel just to let it drip dry. Now ideally you would hang this up from some height, but we don't have anything. Oh, maybe I'll do this. That should work. I know it doesn't look the greatest, but that's just that the extra water drains out from the chicken. Now keep an eye on the hose here, make sure it doesn't cut off. Alright, now we get to the fun part, the plating. I'm going to start with the rice. And to do this, I'm going to flip it over. Hopefully this works. Voila! Now let's add some chicken in there to the mix. We'll go in with some white meat first. Look a little pretty. You can see the chicken's fully cooked. And then a piece of dark meat as well. Why not? And now we dress it with some sesame oil. And this is completely optional, although this is the traditional way to do it. A little bit of sesame oil. Some soy sauce, just to give it that little bit of saltiness and umami. Here is some of the stock that we had simmering, so that kind of heats the chicken up as it kind of cooled down when we put it in an ice bath. That's generally how you dress the chicken. Now it's usually served with some cucumbers for garnish. I'm just going to put them there. And let's add this lovely spicy sauce. And just a little bit on the chicken. And some of the scallion and ginger oil that we had made earlier. Put that on as well. And you can use as little or as much as you like. Generally, if you eat this in Singapore or anywhere that they serve this, all the sauces come as a side, as dipping sauces. And we can just decorate it with some coriander or cilantro. And